Hello, Craig Swan for Leverage Academy, here to bust the myth that you can act independently on a Class 2 real estate agent. That, my friends, is just plain and simply bollocks. So let me just step back a little bit and give you some background as to why I've said what I've said. I get a phone call at least once a day, many times a week, from people looking for confirmation that what they've heard out there from, I don't know who in particular, they've heard that you can act. In most cases, the call relates to buyer's agency. They can act as a buyer's agent with a Class 2 real estate agent, and the main reason that they feel that is true is that they are not going to be handling trust money and that they're going to be working as a buyer's agent, those two together. Now, I will talk about why I think that myth has come into creation, but let's start with the proposition of what does the law actually say and why have I said that that's not correct, okay? There are two main sources of information that you should be looking at to determine whether or not you can trade independently with a Class 2 license. Now, the first one is the Property and Stock Agents Act 2002, and the second one is the Proper Supervision Guidelines. Both of those documents together with what you'll find on the OFT website. But these two are the primary documents. Now, before we jump into it, let's just talk about the two primary vehicles through which most people will trade in real estate. Mostly you're going to find people, they're going to be trading as a sole trader, or they're going to be trading through some sort of corporate structure. So those two, either you're a sole trader or you're a corporation with a corporation license. Those are the two typical ways that people are going to transact their business in real estate. And the Act, Section 31, speaks directly to those two situations. And let me read to you what it says in Section 31. I'll read from the Act. Okay? Section 31 is headed, holder of a license Class 1 to be in charge of a business. So there's a big clue, right? It says in subsection 1, an individual, here is the individual, an individual who carries on business under a license other than a Class 1, meaning a Class 2, must employ an individual who has a Class 1 to be in charge of that business. So we've dealt with very clearly, the law is very clear. If you're a sole trader and you're going to be running a business, which means independent business, then you are going to have to either be the Class 1 or employ the Class 1. Subsection 2 of 31 says a corporation that holds a corporation license must employ an individual who holds a Class 1 to be in charge of that business. Okay, so they've covered off whether you're a sole trader or whether you're a corporation, the two main vehicles through which, in fact, probably exclusively, those two vehicles will be how you trade. You are going to have to either be the Class 1 or employ or engage with the Class 1 license holder, right? So that seems to be fairly clear, okay? And then if you go to the Proper Supervision Guidelines, and the full name of the Proper Supervision Guidelines, is much longer, hence why they've got a shortened name. The correct full name of the Proper Supervision Guidelines reads as follows. The Secretary's Guidelines, the Secretary being the Office of Fair Trading, the Secretary's Guidelines for the proper supervision of the business of a licensee under Section 32. Now, these are the new guidelines under the new Act. There was an old set of Proper Supervision Guidelines for the old Act. So make sure you get a copy of the new guidelines. They won't be massively different to the old ones, but they will certainly be a refreshed version. And if you go to Clause 1 of the Proper Supervision Guidelines, it says that no part of the business or no part of a business must be left unsupervised by a licensee in charge. Okay, so again, very clear. And if you look at the definition of what a licensee in charge is, which is Part B, it reads as follows. A licensee in charge means an individual who carries on business under a Class 1 license, which is our sole trader, or an individual who is employed to be in charge of a business. So that would be essentially our business structure. Obviously, you can also be a sole trader and employ somebody to be your class 1, because both are legitimate vehicles for trading in real estate. So, so let's just put that into context, right? So if you are working as a buyer's agent, and typically from what I hear and see and work with, buyer's agents are often independent operators, either working for themselves or working under some umbrella, an arrangement whereby, you know, it could be blue sky buyer's agency services, and I, Jim Jones, consult to or use blue sky buyer's agency's website and market presence to market myself. But essentially, I'm running my own business, I'm kicking my own goals, I'm generating my own income. I might have an affiliation, sort of a payment that I make to Blue Sky to make use of their website, their office, their marketing, whatever. But essentially, I am running my own show, generating my own income. Yeah. Or I am providing services. I am contracting my services to an entity. It doesn't really matter which way I do it. If I am running my own show, I am, no matter how you want to define that, I am going to have to be the licensee in charge, or I'm going to have to engage with or employ somebody with a license, a class 1, to be my licensee in charge, whether I am doing, whether I'm acting as a sole trader or some other vehicle. It doesn't really matter. The Act doesn't really make that distinction. Now, there's one area that I wanted to finish on that might explain why this myth even exists in the first place, right? How do we even have a conversation that is so clearly not correct if you look at the correct documentation? Why do we even have this conversation? Where does it even come from? And if you look at subsection 5 of section 31, you can see perhaps where people have conjured the idea from. Okay, and subsection 5 reads as follows, right? It says the Secretary or the Office of Fair Trading, may grant a person an exemption from a provision of this section. So it's possible that the Office of Fair Trading might allow you to trade independently without a class 1. There it is, okay? It says that it's possible, right? It goes on to say the exemption may be granted unconditionally, or it may be granted conditionally. And that conditional or unconditional exemption may be varied or suspended or cancelled. Words to that effect, okay? So it is entirely possible that you could be legitimately trading as a Class 2 license holder, but you would have had to have applied for and received the exemption from the Office of Fair Trading. So it's entirely possible. But to believe that you can do it without that exemption is absolutely incorrect. So I hope that you feel better informed about this matter. This is a perennial question that's coming up daily, all the time. And I know that it's coming up because it's an inconvenient truth. People don't want to hear this, okay? But unfortunately, that is the law. Let me just make a final comment here about this, is that you can tell from the wording of the Act that it's entirely possible to structure your business so that you are covered by the Act. It's entirely possible that you can find an arrangement whereby you do comply with the Act. So it's not as though a Class 2 license holder is going to not be able to work, but you've got to be able to find a way that you work within the confines of the law. So many thanks for viewing. I hope that's been useful. And as usual, take care.